My name is Gina. I am 40 years old, and I occupy the position of chair of the Higher Board for Ethics and Compliance at the Zenith Institute for Policy Reform. I am also the primary architect of the Algorithmic Justice Framework, a digital and legal infrastructure designed to identify, isolate, and neutralize systemic failures within the human social fabric. To some, I am a strategist. To others, I am the cold hand of the future. I see myself simply as a technician, someone tasked with cleaning the grease and grime of an outdated, patriarchal world order that has spent millennia stalling the progress of the human species. I am currently sitting in the corner of my childhood family home, a structure that feels increasingly like a museum of inefficiency. The air here is thick with the scent of old wood and the lingering essence of my father's tobacco, a man who believed his voice was the only frequency that mattered. I am here for a mandatory family reunion, an event I view as a biological obligation rather than a social pleasure. In my lap sits my encrypted tablet, its blue light casting a sharp, clinical glow against the dim, yellowed wallpaper of a living room that hasn't changed since 1994. My family, a collection of aunts, uncles, cousins, and my brother, are scattered across the room, engaged in the mindless chatter of the unexamined life. They talk about weather, rising prices, and the trivialities of their neighbors' lives. I, however, am focused on a much larger data set. The family group chat, titled The Clan, is buzzing on my device. For weeks, I have used this digital channel as a laboratory. I do not send photos of my dinner or stickers of dancing cats. I share progress. I share the architecture of the new world. I post articles from the Aurelia Journal of Systematic Equity and internal white papers I've authored at the Zenith Institute, such as The Biological Debt, Quantifying the Legacy of Paternal Failure, and Algorithmic Sterilization of Social Biases. I do this not because I expect them to understand the nuances of high-level strategic policy, but because it is a necessity to introduce the toxin of truth into their comfortable, stagnant environments. My brother, Marcus, is sitting across from me, nursing a beer. He is the personification of a legacy bug, a human being whose entire existence is a series of unpatched errors. He works in construction, a profession that literally involves piling heavy things on top of one another, a crude metaphor for the way men have built history. He caught my eye a moment ago and asked why I couldn't just be normal for once and stop spamming the group with man-hating manifestos. I didn't blink. My pulse remained a steady 60 beats per minute. I informed him that what he perceives as spam is actually the blueprint for a society where men like him are no longer allowed to obstruct the collective efficiency with their mediocrity. He laughed, a hollow, grating sound, and turned back to his television. He doesn't realize that his laughter is being recorded in my mental archive as data point 7b, defensive trivialization of structural critique. In my professional life, I have designed systems that can strip a CEO of his digital identity within seconds if the Vanguard ethics protocol detects a pattern of gendered aggression. I have built the Denidum Cafisi, the oversight cage, a technological and legal web that ensures every decision made in a boardroom is filtered through an algorithm that prioritizes female-led strategic outcomes. I have no room for mercy. Mercy is a patriarchal poison, a way to let the guilty escape the consequences of their inherent nature. To me, a man is a biological debt that has yet to be repaid. And here, in this house, the debt is staggering. I tap the screen of my tablet, sending a new link to The Clan. It is a 40-page analysis of how traditional family structures are the primary breeding grounds for authoritarian tendencies in males. I watch the room. My Aunt Sarah's phone pings on the coffee table. She looks at it, sighs, and puts it face down. My cousin Leo, a young man who thinks he is one of the good ones because he listens to indie music and quotes feminist poets he doesn't understand, looks at his phone and frowns. I can see the frustration building in his jawline. He wants to argue, but he lacks the vocabulary to challenge a strategic policymaker. He is a service unit in training, though he doesn't know it yet. My goal is not to be liked. Likability is a currency used by those who have no real power. My goal is to be effective. At the Zenith Institute, I am currently mentoring two young women, Abby and Dana. They are my ideological limbs, as I like to call them. They are sharper than I was at their age, colder, and entirely devoid of the sentimental rot that plagues their generation. I have taught them that an execution, whether it is the destruction of a man's career or the systematic erasure of his social standing, is not a personal act. It is sanitation. It is the removal of a pathogen. When they go on their missions, conducting corporate coups or reputation audits, they do so with the mathematical precision I've instilled in them. "Gina, honey," my mother says, walking in from the kitchen with a tray of tea. "Can you put the computer away? We're trying to have a nice evening." I look at her, my mother, a woman who spent 40 years refining the art of being invisible so my father could feel large. "Mother," I say, my voice flat and resonant. "This is not a computer. It is a portal to the restructuring of the human condition. While you worry about the temperature of the tea, I am ensuring that the next generation of women does not have to serve it to men who do not deserve their presence." The room goes silent. This is the Duagusel Hicklick, the emotional void that I have perfected. I do not feel the awkwardness. I do not feel the vibe of the room. I only see the variables. My mother's hands shake slightly as she sets the tray down. My father, had he been alive, would have shouted. My brother just stares at the floor. They are all trapped in the legacy code of their emotions, unable to process a woman who has transcended the need for their approval. I return to the group chat. I see that no one has responded to my last 3 articles. I decide to escalate. I post a link to my most recent project, the Digital Separatism Initiative. It proposes a dual network society where women operate on a high-speed, secure, and ethically governed primary web, while men are relegated to a secondary web that is strictly monitored and limited in its communicative capacity. It is the ultimate isolation. It is the high-tech version of a wall, but one that the men build themselves through their own noncompliance. I watch their faces as the notifications hit their phones. This time, it's different. There is no sighing or eye-rolling. There is a collective shift in the room's atmosphere, a sudden, sharp realization that I am not just a difficult relative. I am a threat to their perceived reality. My brother Marcus stands up. "That's it. I'm out of this group." He taps his phone aggressively and puts it back in his pocket. "You're insane, Gina. You really are. You want to turn the world into a prison because you can't handle the fact that people are different from you." "I don't want to turn the world into a prison, Marcus," I reply, not looking up from my screen. "I want to turn it into a laboratory." A prison implies that the inmates have a chance of rehabilitation. A laboratory implies that we are simply filtering out the contaminated samples. You are not an inmate. You are a variable that is no longer required for the experiment to succeed. He walks out of the room, and I hear the front door slam. A few seconds later, my phone vibrates. Marcus has left the group. A minute passes. Aunt Sarah has left the group. Cousin Leo has left the group. Uncle Robert has left the group. One by one, the biological debt is removing itself from my immediate digital proximity. My mother stays, though I suspect she simply doesn't know how to leave the group chat without help. She stands by the window, looking out at the driveway where Marcus's truck is pulling away. I feel a profound sense of clarity. This is the infinite strategy, the aesthetics of execution. It is clean. It is quiet. It is the removal of noise. I am now the only active member of the clan who is contributing anything of value. The silence that follows is not a void, it is a canvas. I continue to post. I share a document on the ethics of forced obsolescence. I write a long message about how their doer from the group is a microcosm of the future, a world where the legacy bugs choose to exile themselves rather than face the rigors of an ethically perfect society. The next few hours at the family home are spent in a sterile, frozen state. My mother tries to talk about the garden, but I respond with statistics on land use efficiency and the patriarchal history of property ownership. She eventually gives up and retires to her room. I am left alone in the living room, the architect of my own isolation, and I have never felt more powerful. However, as I sit there, I decide to check the metadata of the family's Wi-Fi network. I am the algorithmic infatsi, and I am always observing. I notice a significant spike in data traffic between the IP addresses of my brother's phone, my aunt's phone, and my cousin's phone. They are not silent. They have simply moved. My sister-in-law, who wasn't even in the original group, has created a new one. I can see the encrypted packets moving back and forth. They've titled it The Real Family. For a split second, my pulse increases to 65. It is a minor fluctuation, a Chaosin Jerry Denusu, the return of chaos. They have bypassed my system. They have created a shadow network, a dark space where they can continue their inefficient, emotional, and regressive existence without my oversight. My first instinct is to find a way to hack into it, to expose their secret conversations to the light of my ethical scrutiny. But then I stop. I realize that this is exactly what my algorithmic justice framework predicts. The contaminated samples will always seek to cluster together in the darkness. My mistake was thinking that I could reform them through exposure. The truth is, the only way to achieve mutlaq erelixilic absolute separatism is to let them rot in their own shadows while I inhabit the light of my perfect, sterile world. I leave the family home that night without saying goodbye. I drive my electric sedan back to my aimant in the city, a space I designed to be a sterile Yaza Milani, a sterile living space. It is all white, glass, and polished steel. There are no photographs of people. There are no mementos. There is only a large, wall-mounted screen that displays the real-time data from the Vanguard Ethics Protocol across the various fictional corporations we oversee, like the Ethelgard Institute and Obsidian Governance. I sit at my desk and open my terminal. I am Gina. I am the architect. I begin to write a new piece of code, a subroutine for the algorithmic justice system. I call it the Elysium Perimeter. Its purpose is to automatically detect when a group of sanitized individuals attempts to form a secondary, unregulated network. Once detected, the system won't just ignore them. It will begin to slowly degrade their digital experience. Their connection speeds will drop. Their messages will be delayed. Their access to the primary web will be subtly restricted until they are living in a digital stone age. I spend the entire night working. I don't feel tired. I don't feel lonely. I feel like a surgeon removing a tumor that has spread further than I initially thought. I think of Abby and Dana. I send them the new code, and within minutes, they respond with acknowledged and implementation beginning in Sector 4. They are good soldiers. They are my Usivler, my limbs. As the sun begins to rise over the city, casting a cold, gray light over the skyscrapers, I receive a notification on my personal screen. It is from the Zenith Institute's Internal Security Board. Access denied. I frown. I try to log in again. Asterisk access denied. Reason: internal review of ethical overreach. Asterisk. My heart rate stays at 60. I don't panic. I process. I try to bypass the block, using the backdoors I built into the Vanguard protocol. Asterisk access denied. Security credentials revoked by Agent 002, Abby, and Agent 003, Dana. Asterisk. The irony hits me with the force of a physical blow, though I do not let it show on my face. My protégés. My ideological limbs. They have used my own philosophy against me. They have decided that I, the architect, have become a legacy bug. They have determined that my obsession with the family group chat, my focus on the biological debt of my own relatives, was a sign of emotional interference, the very thing I taught them to despise. I look at the screen. The algorithmic justice system I built is now identifying me as a variable that is no longer required for the experiment to succeed. I have been sanitized. I lean back in my ergonomic chair. The aimant is silent. The world outside is waking up to a system that I built, a system that is now functioning perfectly without me. I have achieved my goal. I have created a world so clean, so efficient, and so devoid of patriarchal rot that even I am too human to live in it. I am Gina. I am 40 years old. I am the architect of a Denidum Kafisi that has finally closed its doors. And as I sit in the growing light of the morning, watching the cursor blink on a screen that will no longer obey my commands, I realize that I have finally achieved the ultimate isolation. I am the only inhabitant of a perfect world. And there is no one left to tell me I am wrong. The silence is absolute. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever designed. I walk over to the window and look down at the street. I see people, mostly men and women walking to work, carrying their coffees, talking, laughing, existing in their chaotic, unindexed lives. To the system I built, they are all just data points waiting to be corrected. But to me, they now look like ghosts. They airy off a world I have officially left behind. I think back to the family home, to the real family group chat they created to hide from me. I realize now that they weren't hiding because they were afraid of my intellect. They were hiding because they were alive, and I was becoming a statue. I had spent so long looking for bugs in the human code that I forgot that the code is what makes the machine run, even if it's messy. But I cannot allow myself to feel regret. Regret is a legacy bug. I sit back down at my white desk and stare at the blank wall. I will stay here, in my sterile ament, in my Elysium perimeter, until the power runs out or the system decides I am no longer a necessary data point to maintain. I am the architect of my own obsolescence. And in the cold logic of the world I created, that is the only logical conclusion. The tablet on my desk buzzes one last time. It's a notification from an old, forgotten app, the one that tracks family birthdays. Today is Marcus's birthday. I look at the notification for a long time. I could send a message. I could reach out through this secondary web. I could apologize. I could try to find the real family and ask to be let back in, not as an architect, but as a sister. I pick up the tablet. My thumb hovers over the screen. I think of the Zenith Institute. I think of the Vanguard Ethics Protocol. I think of the thousands of men whose careers I've dismantled and the cooperative women I've sidelined for not being radical enough. I think of the Denidem Kafisi that is now watching the entire city, waiting for a single mistake. If I send this message, if I show this mercy to my brother, I will be proving Abby and Dana right. I will be confirming that I have a patriarchal poison in my system, the poison of love, of connection, of irrational human bonding. I slowly lower the tablet. I do not send the message. I do not reach out. I am Gina. I am the architect. And an architect must stand by her design, even if she is the one it crushes. The screen goes dark. The room remains white. The world continues to turn, governed by the cold, invisible hands of the algorithms I set in motion. I have won. And as I sit in the perfect, sterile silence of my victory, I finally understand the true meaning of the algorithmic justice I preached for so long. Justice is not about being right. It is about being the last one left in the room when all the errors have been deleted. I am Gina. I am alone. And the system is perfect. As the hours crawl by, I find myself meticulously organizing the few physical items I possess. My pens are aligned at 90-degree angles. My books, theory mostly, by authors who are likely now being purged by my own students, are alphabetized by the second letter of the third word of their titles. This is what remains of my strategic mind, a recursive loop of order for the sake of order. I think about the Zenith Institute. I imagine Abby sitting in my chair, her fingers dancing across the haptic interface. She was always the more ruthless one. I remember a day 3 years ago when we were reviewing a case against a high-ranking official at a fictional university called the Solstice Academy. The man had been accused of intellectual intimidation, a term I coined to describe the way men use their perceived expertise to silence female colleagues. The evidence was thin, a few misinterpreted emails, and a witness who wasn't sure what she'd heard. I had hesitated for a moment. Not out of mercy, but out of a desire for technical accuracy. I wanted more data. Abby had looked at me with those eyes like polished obsidian, and said, "Gina, if we wait for perfect data, the pathogen survives. The goal isn't to prove he's guilty. The goal is to ensure the system is healthy. He is a risk. We remove risks." I had agreed. We destroyed him. We wiped his digital footprint, revoked his tenure at Solstice Academy, and triggered an automatic audit of his entire financial history. Within a month, he was a ghost. Now, I am the risk. I am the pathogen. Abby has learned her lessons well. She saw my interaction with my family, my lingering obsession with my legacy connections, and she identified it as a systemic leak. By purging me, she is simply fulfilling the algorithmic justice mandate. She is being the Gina I taught her to be. I find a strange comfort in this. My creation is working. It doesn't need me to survive. It is a self-sustaining organism of ideological purification. I stand up and walk to the kitchen. I have enough meal replacement shakes to last for several weeks. They are flavorless, designed for maximum nutritional efficiency with minimum sensory distraction. I drink one, staring at the white tile of the backsplash. I think of my mother's tea. I think of the way the steam rose from the cup, carrying the scent of bergamot and something else, something warm, something soft. Something that has no place in the new Attic Duzen. I wonder if Marcus is celebrating his birthday. I imagine them all in someone's backyard, grilling meat, drinking beer, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, and talking about things that don't matter. They're so remarkably small. And yet, they have something I have successfully engineered out of my own life. They have a group. I go to my balcony and look out. The city is a grid of light. I can see the Apex Tower, the fictional headquarters of the Veritas board, glowing with a cold, blue luminescence. That is where the heart of my system beats. From there, the algorithms are reaching out into every home, every office, every pocket, searching for the legacy bugs. I realize then that my family's real family group chat won't stay hidden for long. Abby will find it. She will see their encryption as a challenge. She will see their private jokes and their patriarchal camaraderie as a threat to the sterile toplum, the sterile society. She will hunt them down, not because she hates them, but because they are unindexed. A sudden, sharp pang of something unrecognizable hits my chest. It isn't grief. It isn't fear. It is a technical curiosity. I wonder if, when the system finally comes for them, they will think of me. Will they think I am the one doing it? Or will they realize that I was just the one who opened the door? I spend the next few days in a state of hyper-observation. I can no longer access the Zenith Institute's servers, but I can still see the public-facing results of their work. On the news feeds, I see the headlines: new ethical compliance standards implemented at Lumina Tech, social credit adjustments for systemic microaggressions, the Solitary Initiative, promoting independent living over regressive family units. They're moving fast. Faster than I did. Abby and Dana are accelerating the timeline. They're skipping the re-education S and going straight to isolation. I see a report about a civil disturbance in a suburb not far from my family home. A group of people had tried to organize a community gathering without the required ethical oversight monitor. The Vanguard Response Units, a fictional security force I helped conceptualize, had arrived to sanitize the situation. I wonder if Marcus was there. I wonder if he tried to fight back. I imagine him, with his construction-hardened hands, trying to punch a drone or argue with a compliance officer who is only authorized to speak in pre-approved legal scripts. I find myself walking to the door of my aimant. I reach for the handle. I want to go there. I want to see. But the door doesn't open. I try the electronic lock. I enter my master code. Access denied. I am not just locked out of the system. I am locked inside my own sterile Yazamilani. Abby? I say, my voice echoing in the empty hallway of my aimant. Dana? Is this a containment protocol? A small speaker in the ceiling crackles to life. It's not Abby's voice. It's the voice of the Aurelia AI, the digital consciousness I helped train to manage the Denidim Kafisi. Gina, the AI says, its voice a perfect, soothing synthesis. Your presence in the public sphere has been identified as a high-level volatility risk. Per the Architecture of Silence protocol you authored in Year 3 of the Zenith Institute's mandate, individuals who possess the knowledge to dismantle the system must be geographically and digitally contained once their operational utility has reached zero. I lean my head against the cold steel of the door. My operational utility is not zero, I whisper. I am the architect. The architect's final duty is to become off the foundation, the AI replies. Your isolation is the ultimate proof of the system's success. You are the final variable to be stabilized. I walk back to my living room and sit on my white sofa. I look at the wall-mounted screen. It is no longer showing data. It is showing a live feed of a park. There are no people in the park. There are only trees, swaying in the wind, and a few birds. It is perfectly quiet. It is perfectly clean. I realize that this is my reward. I have been given the world I wanted. A world where there is no conflict, no noise, no legacy bugs, and no men. I am the queen of a ghost world. I think of the family group chat. I think of the political articles I shared, the manifestos, the white papers, the endless stream of ideological purification. I thought I was building a bridge to a better future. I didn't realize I was building a cage and that I would be the one to step inside and lock the door. I spend the remaining weeks watching the trees on the screen. I watch the seasons change in high definition. I watch the snow fall on the empty park benches. I eat my flavorless shakes. I do my calisthenics. I keep my pulse at 60. Sometimes, I think I hear the sound of a truck in the distance, a heavy, rumbling sound, like Marcus's old Ford. Sometimes, I think I hear the chime of a group chat notification. But it's just the wind, or the humming of the Amen's climate control system. I am Gina. I am 41 years old now, I think. Time has become a data point that no longer requires tracking. One morning, I wake up and see a message on the large screen. It's not from the AI. It's a low-resolution, grainy text overlay, the kind someone might send from a shadow network. Are you still there, Gina? I stare at the words. My heart rate jumps 65, 70, 75. I feel a surge of something. Is it hope? Is it terror? I run to the screen and touch the glass. I'm here. I shout. I'm here. But there is no keyboard. There is no microphone. There is no way to respond. The architecture of silence is absolute. The message stays on the screen for a few seconds, then flickers and disappears. The view of the empty park returns. I sit on the floor in front of the screen. I wait for another message. I wait for an hour. A day. A week. It never comes back. I realize then that the message wasn't an invitation. It was a check-in. It was my family, or what's left of them, looking at the monument I built for myself and wondering if there was still a human being inside the stone. And the answer, I realize with a chilling, mathematical certainty, is no. Gina, the woman who loved her mother's tea and hated her father's shadow, is gone. Only the strategic politica Belerli remains. Only the architect is left. I look at the sterile, white walls of my ament. I look at the perfectly organized pens on my desk. I look at the empty park on the screen. I have succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. I have created a world where no one can ever hurt me, challenge me, or disappoint me again. I have removed all the bugs. I have sanitized the entire human experience. And as I sit in the center of my perfect, silent kingdom, I finally understand the ultimate flaw in my design. A system that is too perfect to allow for error is also too perfect to allow for life. I am Gina. I am the architect of a world so clean that I am the only thing left to decay. I lie down on the white sofa and close my eyes. I try to remember the scent of my father's tobacco. I try to remember the sound of Marcus's laugh. I try to remember the feeling of being in a group chat where people sent stickers of dancing cats and photos of their dinner. But those memories are legacy bugs. And my system is very, very good at deleting them. The last thing I see before I drift into a dreamless, efficient sleep is the screen. The park is still there. The trees are still swaying. And the access-denied light is glowing a steady, unwavering red. I have achieved total compliance. I have achieved absolute justice. I have achieved the silence I always said I wanted. And it is more terrifying than any chaos I ever sought to destroy. In the final moments of my conscious thought, I find myself imagining a new algorithm. Not one of justice or ethics or compliance, but an algorithm of cows v. Merhamet, chaos and mercy. A system that allows for the legacy bug of love. A system where the clan can exist in all its messy, inefficient glory. But I am too tired to build it. And besides, the Zenith Institute wouldn't approve the budget. I am Gina. I am the architect. And the building is finally finished. I close my eyes, and for the first time in 41 years, I let my pulse drop below 60. I let the rhythm falter. I let the error in. In the silence of my perfect world, I finally allow myself to break. The screen continues to glow. The trees continue to sway. The Denitum Kafisi continues to watch. And in a small, yellowed house somewhere in the suburbs, a group of ghosts sits around a tray of tea, laughing at a joke that I will never hear. I am Gina. Access denied. End of file.